On a warm summer's eve, on a train bound to Knowin, lit up with a candle, we were both too tired to sleep. So we took turns staring at the window at the dark. You're kidding me? Boredom overtook us. He began to speak. He said, "Son, I made a life of reading people's faces, knowing what cards were by the way the hell they're at. So if you don't mind me saying, I can see you right on faces for a taste of your whiskey, give you some advice." So I handed him my bottle, rained down my last swallow. Then he bombed a cigarette and asked me for a light. And the night got deadly quiet. His face lost all expression. Gonna play the game, boy. You gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold. Oh, goes the cock. Know when to fold them. Oh yeah. Know when to walk away. Know when to run. You never count your money. And you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. Oh my goodness.
And you can sing, man.
I can.
You can sing.
On a warm summer's eve, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep. We took turns staring out the window towards the darkness. The boredom overtook us. He began to speak. He said, "Son, I made a life out of reading people's faces, knowing what the cards were by the way they held their eyes. If you don't mind me saying, I can see you're out of aces. For a taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice." So I handed him my bottle. He drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette, asked me for a light, and I got deathly quiet. Oh, his face lost all expression. Said, "If you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold, know when to fold, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done." Now every gambler knows the secret to surviving is knowing what to throw away, knowing what to keep. 'Cause every hand's a winner, oh, every hand's a loser. The best you can hope for is a good night's sleep. And when he'd finished speaking, he turned back towards the window, crushed out his cigarette. He faded off to sleep. Somewhere in the darkness, the gambler he broke even, but in his final words I found an ace I could keep. You got to know when to hold, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough to count when the dealing's done. Oh, there'll be time enough to count when the dealing's done.
Kiwaine kioruga Ogithi wa masafa Kora mokarata Tole nogu notaro Amodwero ragira Dumagatiri sayin Keigwa twahoreka Yaria ikia jio hau Timona jakite maisa Naguthoma mothio madu Menya kandi ciao Auria maroraga Makorwo ndukuona thina Ndirona wijaya gĩũthi Onĩ wanjamie kane Kĩreke ngĩkwaririe Ndĩmone cuba yako Akĩhũra kamũico Kĩnyita kĩraiko Kĩnjĩtie kĩraita Na ũtukũ gĩkiraki Ũthiũ wake ũgĩte ciugo Gĩrokorwo nĩ gũtha No nginya ũthake wega No mũhaka ũmenye kũmanyita Ũmenye kũmakũnja Ũmenye kweherera No nginya ũmenye kũratũkana Ũre gĩthabu Wĩ metha-inĩ ya gĩũthi Nĩ kũrĩ ihinda rĩega Ona gĩũthi gĩathira Mũkarata nĩoĩ atĩ thiri ya gũtũra Menya kĩrĩa gũte na kũmenya gĩa kũiga Wothe ũngĩhotana Kĩndũ mũnene agĩte Kĩrĩa kĩego ngĩrirĩria Kũhurũka wĩ toro Mũkarata rĩkia kwari Gĩcoka ndirica-inĩ Kĩhoria kĩraiko Kĩigua etoro Na handũ gatumaini Mũkarata cokia ciake Ciugo ciake cia mũico Ndathoma kĩega kĩiganu No mũhaka ũmenye kũmanyita Ũmenye kũmakũnja Ũmenye kweherera No nginya ũmenye kũratũkana Ũre gĩthabu Wĩ metha-inĩ ya gĩũthi Kũrĩ ihinda rĩega Ona gĩũthi gĩathira No mũhaka just know when to hold, know when to go, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money while sitting at the table. There'll be time enough to count when the deal is done. You just know when to hold, know when to hold, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money while sitting at the table. There'll be time enough to count when the deal is done.
Only one summer's eve, on the train bound for nowhere, met up with the gambler. We were both stood turtlessly, so it took turn as turn. As the window of the darkness, the boredom overtook us. He began to speak. He said, "Son of bet for life, I've been reading people's faces, knowing what the cares were, about the word their lies. I said, if you don't mind me saying, I can see all the faces, for the taste of your whiskey, I give you some advice." And so I handed him my butter, then he drank down my last swallow. Then he found a cigarette and he asked me for a light. And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost her expression. So Jeffrey gonna play the game, boy. You got to run to pray, right? You got to know when to hold, and know when to water, and know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time to never counting when the deal is done. Every gambler knows about the secret to surviving. It's knowing what to throw away and knowing what to give. Because every end is winners, and the happy hand is losers. And the birthday you can offer is to die in your sleep. And when he finished picking, he turned back to the window. He crushed down his cigarette and put it all to sleep. And somewhere in the darkness, the gambler he broke even. For in his final words I burn and it's an I can kill. You got to know when to hold, and know when to water, and know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. And there'll be time enough for counting. You got to know when to hold. Hold on, hold on, when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the deal is done. You got to know when to hold. Hold on, hold on, when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table, and there will be time enough for counting when the deal is done. Asanteni sana. Thank you so much.
On a warm summer's evening, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep, So we took turns staring out the window at the darkness, till boredom overtook us and he began to speak. He said, son, I made my life out of reading people's faces, knowing what the cards were by the way they held their eyes. So if you don't mind me saying, I can see you're out of aces. For a taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice. So I handed him a bottle, and he drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light. And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. If you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. Now every gambler knows that the secret to surviving is knowing what to throw away and knowing what to keep. 'Cause every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser, and the best that you can hope for is to die in your sleep. So when he got finished speaking, he turned back towards the window, crushed out his cigarette and faded off to sleep. And somewhere in the darkness, the gambler, he broke even, but in his final words I found an ace that I could keep. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done.
On a warm summer's eve, on a train back from Knowin, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to speak, so we both took to staring out the window at the darkness. The boredom overtook us. He began to speak. He said, son, I made a life out of reading people's faces, knowing what the cards were by the way they held their eyes. But if you don't mind me saying, I can see you're out of aces. For the taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice. So I handed him my bottle, he drank mine and swallowed. Then he pumped a cigarette, asked me for a light. Then I got quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said, if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn how to play it right. You got know when to fold it, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your You never count your money while you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done.